My name is Christian Ashley, a seminary student and servant of God, and you are listening to the Let Nothing Move You podcast, a proud Anazal Ministries podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to the next episode of the Let Nothing Move You podcast. I'm your host, Christian Ashley, as we continue on through the book of 1 Samuel. Today, we'll be in 1 Samuel 11 and 12. Not really anything of note for housekeeping at the start, so just go ahead and get into this one. We'll be starting today in chapter 11, verses 1 through 4. Then Nahash the Ammonite went up and besieged Jabesh Gilead. And all the men of Jabesh said to Nahash, "Make a treaty with us, and we will serve you." But Nahash the Ammonite said to them, "On this condition I will make a treaty with you, that I gouge out all your right eyes, and thus bring disgrace on all Israel." The elders of Jabesh said to him, "Give us 7 days' respite, that we may send messengers through all the territory of Israel. Then if there is no one to save us, we will give ourselves up to you." When the messengers came to Gibeah of Saul, they reported the matter in the ears of the people, and all the people wept aloud. Let's start here. We have yet another incursion on Hebrew territory by an outside force. This time, not the Philistines, which, given the buildup that we've been having, you would expect the first enemy that God would bring against Israel for Saul to unite Israel around would be the Philistines. But no, it's actually the Ammonites, who they have a history with, but more recently it's been Philistines messing with them. Now, Nahash, the king of Ammon here, or general, kind of hard to tell depending on, how you interpret some of what's going on here. Point is, he's in charge. And he's been running it all over the eastern side of Israel, with the 2.5 tribes that are on that side of the Jordan. And he's met very little resistance. Now he's besieging Jabesh Gilead and gives them an opportunity here for, peace, as in the peace of, I'm going to take everything from you and just submit to me because I'm better than you, which is very common in the ancient world and common in our world too, in ways people don't want to talk about, not even just country versus country. But he gives them this ultimatum after they ask for a treaty. Now, there's some language issues here, not issues, but like things, quirks. It would be a better way of putting it that we don't really get because of how it's worded here. But the idea of cutting a treaty back in the day, they don't say cut in the translation I use for ESV, but that's what's essentially being said here. To cut a treaty meant someone's like, hey, we'll sacrifice these animals together and, I'll submit to your authority or we'll work together as a team, whatever the bindings of that treaty is. And Nahash is like, yeah, sure. Yeah, we can cut a treaty, but I want you to cut out your right eye. Why? Because it's a monster. There's no other way of putting this. There is no legitimate reason to do this to a person you have pretty much already beaten, outside of demeaning them as people and showing that you are superior over them. Now, if this had been some punishment God had told, like, say, David later on, like, hey, pluck out their right eyes because, of XYZ reason, because of how much they saw, now they can only half see or something like that, just to give an idea, that's one thing. Now, this isn't that. This is someone who has no authority at all except what God has given them, abusing that authority for their own ends and causing death and destruction and wailing and mourning simply because they wish to feel superior over someone else. And let me tell you, there are a lot of Nahashes out there in the world. Probably most of them won't be as bold as he is. I mean, we'll see cruelty across the world. All you need to do is look at the news and actually see what they're covering, which is very little of what is actually happening in the world because it's not spiced up enough to generate interest for people to click and watch videos. But there's tons of terrorist leaders out there doing stuff like this. You've got Islamic militias out there that are doing terrible things to Christians, to other religions as well, even to fellow Muslims. And it's all about control. It's all about showing superiority. And Nahash is just a dime a dozen in the world. What does that tell us? We're never to be like this man. Like, this is a pure villain. Yeah, I'm sure there are other aspects that aren't focused on the scripture. Maybe he was nice to a waiter, whatever passes for a waiter, or one of his servants. Sure, that's great. But you're showing who you are by how you lead. And Nahash is a terrible leader. He's good a leader for your warring, rapacious bandits and marauders, sure. Even though he is leader of a nation or general of a nation, depending on how you interpret that, that doesn't justify that he can do these things. And you see there's also ego involved because he allowed Jabesh Gilead to ask for help from Israel. And you would think, well, that's stupid. Why would you let them have time to rally their troops so they can come and fight you? You've already got the city. Just go ahead and take it. Well, you would be right. But Nahash is swelling with pride because his attacks on the eastern side of Israel have gone not unnoticed. There's been no response. So he figures, oh, Israel is so disunified right now. Like they have no king. Maybe he hasn't heard of Saul. And even then, if you heard of Saul, it'd be like, well, they just started having a king. It's not like they know how things are done. Like, I know how things are done in the world because the rest of the nations are like me. Israel's this weirdo that doesn't have a king. So, yeah, go ahead and send out your messengers. No one's going to come help you because you are 12, technically 13 different tribes here that don't love each other well. They don't look after each other well. Yeah, eventually you'll come and do the right thing because, as noted in Judges, we know the Ammonites know enough of the history of Israel to make, charges against them. But it's that pride and egotism that's going to lead to Nahash's fall. And that is another important quality of him serving as kind of an anti-leader, as someone we shouldn't look up to. Versus the beginnings of Saul's reign here, where we're going to see someone actually do something good. Like I said earlier, when Saul does something good, I'm going to call him out on it. When Saul does something terrible, I'm going to call him out on it. And we're going to see how he actually formalizes his hold over Israel as king by going into verses 5 through 11. Now, behold, Saul was coming from the field behind the oxen, and Saul said, what is wrong with the people that they are weeping? So they told him the news of the men of Jabesh, and the Spirit of God rushed upon Saul when he heard these words, and his anger was greatly kindled. He took a yoke of oxen and cut them in pieces and sent them throughout all the territory of Israel by the hand of the messengers, saying, whoever does not come out after Saul and Samuel, so shall it be done to his oxen. Then the dread of the Lord fell upon the people, and they came out as one man. When he mustered them at Bezek, the people of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. And he said to the messengers who had come, thus shall you say to the men of Jabesh Gilead, tomorrow by the time the sun is hot, you shall have salvation. When the messengers came and told the men of Jabesh, they were glad. Therefore the men of Jabesh said, tomorrow we will give ourselves up to you, and you may do to us whatever seems good to you. And the next day Saul put the people in 3 companies, and they came into the midst of the camp in the morning watch and struck down the Ammonites until the heat of the day. And those who survived were scattered so that no 2 of them were left together. So you could say in the last time that we were here that the first real challenge to Saul's leadership as king of Israel was the worthless fellows who grumbled against him. That's one thing. And sure, that's a challenge, but like this is the first legitimate challenge that Saul has now faced as king, because it's going to put him into a position where he actually has to use his newfound authority to actually lead Israel. It's not just a title. It's not just something they did because they had nothing better to do or just have a fling. Like, oh, we'll have a king for a moment, but we're not going to listen to him. No, this is where God has allowed this evil to occur so that his people can be better for it, can rally together to know that they have a common cause and actually work on that together. Because what's happened in Jabesh Gilead could easily happen to any one of them. And so Saul wisely cuts up an ox instead of a person and gives the remains out to the other tribes, said, look, I'm your king. Our people are being attacked. It doesn't matter that you're over here, Asher, and nothing bad's happening to you currently. Like, no, get your acts together, rally the forces together, and we're going to go and fight the Ammonites, which is a huge undertaking in a short amount of time. And yet he's able to do it very swiftly because they get the message. If I don't follow through and everyone else does, guess who's getting killed next? Because I disobeyed the king that God made in charge of this nation. Because ultimately the one I wouldn't be hurting isn't the king. The one I'd be hurting is God and not falling and submitting under his authority. So they rally together. And this is a brilliant tactical decision by Saul. It's like, look, you're either with me or you're against me. Now, there's sometimes that phrase can be misused, but like this is essentially what it's meant to be. The gold standard, as it were. Join me, protect your fellow brother Israelites, or end up like the Ammonites we're about to go kill because God is on our side. And he's going to prove it by, as my first military campaign as king, allowing me to have the victory. And there's some cultural context here. We're also missing a little bit too. If we just kind of skip over this. Now, you recall our time in Judges, and the hardest chapters in Judges, to me, where, the Benjamites rebel, and there's this whole civil war that goes on. You remember the end where Israel making the foolish vows that they also should have known that they can undo with the proper sacrifices, but they didn't. Go after one particular city. What city was that again? Oh, it was Jabesh Gilead, which means that the tribe of Benjamin, who stole the women from this city, who had never been married, so that they could, become wives to the Benjamites, have a special connection here to Jabesh Gilead. Now, what does this mean? That some people survived and they were able to rebuild the city, or someone else came from the tribe nearest to Jabesh Gilead and rebuilt the city? Who knows? But there's a history here that if you just read through this Bible, you're going to miss. And I think God is using this very intentionally to show, look, this is how things happen when you were in charge, Israel. You killed the people of Jabesh Gilead and you stole the women for evil deeds. Well, now that I'm in charge, I've been in charge the entire time, but now you're going to look at me as in charge because I gave you a king. What am I going to do to Jabesh Gilead and your relationship with them? I'm going to strengthen it. If you had just done this earlier, this wouldn't have happened to them the last time. But follow me, follow my representative, the king, Saul, that you wouldn't do for my representative, prophet Samuel, and look at the good that we can accomplish together. Look at how much I love you. Jabesh Gilead should be a ruin. No one should have ever repopulated it again. They should have been salted. Be like, oh gosh, it was such a terrible thing we did. I don't even want to think about it anymore, and lost the history. And yet, what does God do? He preserves that history because it's something they needed to learn from. It's something we need to learn from. Our failures, our times in the past when we have hurt someone else and basically destroyed that relationship, basically killed them in our minds, can be rebuilt, can be strengthened again. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. And it's going to take humility. And that's not easy. But look at what they do here, Israel. Knowing their cultural history as they do, they rise to the occasion. They may never be said that we didn't do what we were supposed to do this time. Let us actually go and serve God. Let us love our fellow Israelites well. And that's precisely what happens. They go into Jabesh Gilead. The people there run some interference for them, make them think, which you can do militarily. You can, lie about your intentions militarily, which is a good thing in this case, to get your enemy to think incorrectly about the situation so that when Saul comes with Israel, they pretty much almost wipe them as a military force, which helps strengthen the bonds of Saul as king to his now charges Israel. Because who else was going to do this before? It would have been Samuel if they'd listened to him, as God had done to many judges before that, but it's not. Instead, now God gave them what they wanted, and then he didn't punish them immediately, even if this wasn't what he wanted for them. He wanted them to have no king, and yet he loved them well enough to give them what they wanted and not immediately just pull the rug out from underneath them, even though that's exactly what they deserve. That is our loving God. Once again, as I said many times before, if you're reading through this Old Testament and all you see is some hateful, vengeful, angry God who is so upset that he just acts like a really petulant teenager and gets angry and kills people, and not all teenagers do that, but you know what I mean, like lashes out because he's been offended, like, you're not reading the same book I am. This is our loving God who gave them the victory when they didn't deserve it, when they asked for something they didn't need. He gave them more than what they asked for. And we'll see how that builds up a little more by going through verses 12 to 15. Then the people said to Samuel, who was it that said, shall Saul reign over us? Bring the men that we may put them to death. But Saul said, not a man shall be put to death this day, for today the Lord has worked salvation in Israel. Then Samuel said to the people, come, let us go to Gilgal, and there renew the kingdom. So all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. There they sacrificed peace offerings before the Lord, and there Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. Here is another sign of the early wisdom that Saul has as a leader. In the chapter before this, we saw the worthless men speaking out against him, and he in his wisdom said, no, don't kill them, let them speak. Well, now that people love him, even though they should have done that from the moment he became king, what does Saul do? When these same people who were wishy-washy 5 seconds ago about his leadership, when I like all team Saul, like, no, don't go out against the people who spoke against me. They are allowed to do that. And this is huge, especially in the ancient world. Like America and most of the modern world, we're kind of used to the idea of protests, of speaking out against leaders and not expecting to be punished 5 seconds later. No country is perfect in that regard, but compared to where we are in time, pretty dang good. But for them, this was essentially a death sentence. You didn't speak out against your leader because he was in other cultures out there, someone lifted up by the gods, or may even be a god himself if you're looking at like a pharaoh or a Caesar or something like that. So how dare you speak out against them? Like, clearly they're divine and you're not, otherwise you'd be in that position. And so it was very common for speaking out against leaders, not even just kings, just leaders in general, for you to be killed for it. You had no freedom of expression. You had no right to protest or have assembly or anything of that accord. And Saul had every right by the rights of the ancient world to act the same way as king. But even in his weird relationship with God, I'll put that there so I don't lean one way to it, one way or the other, he doesn't give in, which would be so very easy to do. No one likes to be criticized. No one likes to be called out, or no one likes anyone to say lies about them. And it's our tendency to then go, well, I'm going to destroy their reputation instead. But we don't go out killing people for it. Well, we can destroy their lives with what we do and what we say. Tell their bosses something false about something that they did so they lose a job. Put insinuations into the ears of their wives or husbands, depending on what's going on. They're like, oh, did you see where she went the other night? You see where he went the other night? And who was with him? Oh, isn't that interesting? What could be going on there? Because the goal isn't to produce justice. The goal is to get our personal revenge, not vengeance, revenge. But Saul is, for this time right now in history, I have to stress that, better than that. Like, no, we can't be doing this. Like, we just won a victory, guys. Don't you just see what happened there? God saved us, which is the right thing to say. Look, he protected us from the Ammonites, got us all to work together. Why are you focusing on something like this that doesn't matter? Yeah, they should be praising my name. Yeah, by the law, they should probably be killed. But let me show mercy, just like God shows mercy. And let's actually work together here. And let's all go when Samuel comes onto the scene. It's like, guys, let's make this even more official. Like, it should already be official, but now that he's won this victory, let no crisis go without taking advantage of it, like in a good way. Let's all join together so that we can be a kingdom. We can see it's not just tribe versus tribe. It's not just city versus city. We are one nation that serves God. I want to see how Samuel goes into doing that by starting in chapter 12, verses 1 through 5. And Samuel said to all Israel, behold, I have obeyed your voice in all that you have said to me, and have made a king over you. And now, behold, the king walks before you, and I am old and gray, and behold, my sons are with you. I have walked before you from my youth until this day. Here I am. Testify against me before the Lord and before his anointed. Whose ox have I taken? Or whose donkey have I taken? Or whom have I defrauded? Whom have I oppressed? Or from whose hand have I taken a bribe to blind my eyes with? Testify against me, and I will restore it to you. They said, you have not defrauded us or oppressed us or taken anything from any man's hand. And he said to them, the Lord is witness against you, and his anointed is witness this day that you have not found anything in my hand. And they said, he is witness. I used a phrase earlier, is that let no crisis go to waste. And there's a cynical part of that, naturally cynical, I would agree with most of that, where you see like a politician's like, oh no, it suffered this great tragedy, so we need to pass this bill instead of what you weren't going to do. Now that I have your hearts and minds are wrapped around this thought, it's for your own good, it's for your own protection. Or a company will say, well, look what they did. You should buy our product instead. Like, we're not like them, even though we're doing the exact same thing. We just didn't get caught. This is not that. We should have a healthy amount of cynicism and skepticism in this world, and that's difficult to make and produce in our hearts. It takes time, it takes effort, but it's worth doing. But this isn't that. This is taking advantage of a crisis to do good. Samuel, who is very close to death, only a couple of chapters away, looks out to the people of Israel that he has judged for decades. And how does he start? Tell them that they're wrong to not want him or someone else to be judge over Israel? No. He starts with saying, look, who am I to you? Have I done anything against you at all? Does this mean that Samuel is free from sin? No. Quit reading things that aren't in the text. What this means is that Samuel, unlike his sons, did not do these things that he's talking about. He didn't take a bribe so that justice wouldn't be fulfilled. He didn't steal someone's ox or donkey just so he can enrich himself. Instead, he spoke truth to them. He loved them. And he boldly states the phrase, testify against me. That's big. That's a position that a lot of us wouldn't be able to get into and ask everyone to do. Like, hey, testify against me, what I've done against you, how I've hurt you. Anyone willing to volunteer for that? That honest assessment? So we can have everyone we've ever hurt go up to us and go, you did this, you did that. Oh, and you're about to do this too because I know you. I'd have a hard time doing that. I'm not going to lie to you. I'd do it because it's essentially what you have to do as a leader, especially as a pastor. And you have to make sure that you have done nothing against the congregation you're serving as much as possible because you're human and you're frail. But that's exactly what Samuel does, is he presents his whole self in front of Israel, warts and all. He goes, look, he even mentions his failure in his sons and not raising them well or not making sure that they did what they were supposed to do well, depending on how you interpret that. Look at me. Look at what I've done. And Israel says to him that he hasn't done any of those things. And so he then twists it upon them. He didn't start off with, and that should have been good enough for you guys. But under what he's saying here is exactly that. It should have been sufficient for you guys to just follow God and his judges that he appointed on his time. So he tells them that the Lord is witness against you. But he also doesn't demean Saul, who shouldn't have to be in this position. And yet Samuel knows this is also part of God's plan. So he brings them out and calls them out, but also calls them to follow the guy who's replacing him, which is an immensely difficult position to be in. Because once again, Samuel knows how things are supposed to be. But this is their new normal, as it were, because they brought it on themselves. So now that God has allowed this to happen, they must follow through with it. They must love Saul as much as they loved Samuel. And they must love God even more than they had loved him before. And so he calls them the witness against himself. And they do. So when events happen later on, who do they have the blame? No one but themselves. There's a certain charisma that a leader like Samuel has to have to get people to admit something without them realizing. Not in a manipulative way or a totalitarian way, but like, no, look, you said these things, but I want you to think about what you said later on when you're not getting what you want. When you realize the trap I placed for you, and it's a trap that was meant to help you actually get out of another trap. Because you needed to be trapped for a time in your ego, in how you were thinking, so that you could go, oh, I'm in the wrong spot. Or, oh, I said the wrong thing. I need to repent. I need to be better. A good leader will do that. And a good leader will also remind the people of their history. And Samuel goes into that in verses 6 all the way to 18. And Samuel said to the people, the Lord is witness, who appointed Moses and Aaron and brought your fathers up out of the land of Egypt. Now therefore stand still, that I may plead with you before the Lord concerning all the righteous deeds of the Lord that he performed for you and for your fathers. When Jacob went into Egypt and the Egyptians oppressed them, then your fathers cried out to the Lord, and the Lord sent Moses and Aaron, who brought your fathers out of Egypt and made them dwell in this place. But they forgot the Lord their God, and he sold them into the hands of Sisera, commander of the army of Hazor, and into the hand of the Philistines, and into the hand of the king of Moab. And they fought against them, and they cried out to the Lord and said, we have sinned, because we have forsaken the Lord and have served the Baals and the Ashtaroth, but now deliver us out of the hand of our enemies, that we may serve you. And the Lord sent Jerubbaal and Barak and Jephthah and Samuel, and delivered you out of the hand of your enemies on every side, and you lived in safety. And when you saw that Nahash, the king of the Ammonites, came against you, you said to me, no, but a king shall reign over us, when the Lord your God was your king. And now behold the king whom you have chosen, for whom you have asked. Behold, the Lord has set a king over you, if you will fear the Lord and serve him and obey his voice and not rebel against the commandment of the Lord. And if both you and the king who reigns over you will follow the Lord your God, it will be well. But if you will not obey the voice of the Lord, but rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then the hand of the Lord will be against you and your king. Now therefore stand still and see this great thing that the Lord will do before your eyes. Is it not wheat harvest today? I will call upon the Lord that he may send thunder and rain. You shall know and see that your wickedness is great, which you have done in the sight of the Lord in asking for yourselves a king. So Samuel called upon the Lord, and the Lord sent thunder and rain that day, and all the people greatly feared the Lord and Samuel. We have a tendency, when information is presented to us in the way that Samuel does here, to kind of tune out. Especially if you've been following through with me and you've read all this history with me, or you've listened to me speak about this history. That's how you're preferring to do things. You go, yeah, Hazor, blah, 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 Jephthah, that was great, cool. And you're missing the point. I'm missing the point when we do that. This isn't just like a history check of I know my stuff therefore I'm great. No, this is a history check to them and to us who are listening to this now. Go, oh, God preserved us throughout all of that. Against those Canaanites who had those iron chariots that we just couldn't seem to beat. Against the people of Moab when they oppressed us. Against the Ammonites when they oppressed us. God was with us throughout all that. So why did we need to have a king? We already had a king. He just didn't have a throne that we could see. Well, the story is no different now, friends. Like, we're in that exact scenario. Like, God is still our king. He is king of every Christian on this planet. And yet I have never been able to go to his throne room and beseech him directly face to face. I have to rely on the Holy Spirit. I have to rely on prayer to a God that I have never once seen in my life and will not see until it is my time before glory. So why do we act like them when we know better? Because that's Samuel's point. You all know better because you've heard the same history that I've talked about today multiple times over. God saved you from Egypt. God saved you from these people. God, 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 God. And yet, who did you cry out for when you felt threatened by the Ammonites? You asked for a king, a human king just as flawed and imperfect as the rest of you. Once again, don't come running to me when things go wrong. Now, love your king as you love your God. Make sure that he reigns over you and follows God. So things will be well. Because if he doesn't, then you're going to follow suit, and the whole of Israel is going to be destroyed because you weren't doing what you're supposed to be doing. When I gave you what you wanted, to flash forward to the present, how are we any better than them? But God has gifted multiple churches with good leaders. They are imperfect men, just as Saul was imperfect. I would argue they're better than him because they actually follow God. But that's another thing. But if we just look at them and we don't listen to a single word that they say, these men, then we're just as bad as them. When these leaders are leading well, I shouldn't have to add that caveat, but we do live in this world. And sometimes imperfect men lead imperfectly. If they're good, if they're righteous, they'll repent and they'll ask for everyone's forgiveness. But we're not talking about the leader who isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. We're talking about the leader who is, and the people don't listen. It's a terrible place to be in. Because if you can't do that to a man that you can see and look right in the eye, how can you do that to a God you can't see? How can you love him well, follow him well, if you can't even do it to a human representative you've given on this earth? A human representative who will live and who will die and be replaced by another human representative who will live and who will die until it's time for the judgment day. If you can't do it for someone that looks exactly like you and is human made, why do you expect me to believe that you can do it when I ask you to love me, God? You're acting as witnesses against yourself when that happens. So may it not be said of us that we act this way so hypocritically, so unlovingly. And let us be better about it. So we need to identify signs. Like, am I not submitting to the authority of my pastor? Am I not reading my Bible? Am I not praying for the people around me? Am I not asking God what to do with my life? All these things on their own sound so small and pathetic and like, oh, that's not really a problem. But when you keep adding them up, or if you don't even need to, and it's just one of those things, that's still a huge problem. That means we are not devoting the fullness of our hearts towards him. And we're going to end up exactly like Israel when we do that. And the church can't sustain that. The church needs men and women who are actively resisting themselves and submitting to the authority of God so that other people out there will see that, know what they're meant for, and come to faith. Otherwise, they're going to look at those Christians and go, they're a bunch of hypocrites. Why would I ever serve their God? They don't even serve their God. They say they do. They say it with their lips, but outside they go and do whatever they want. I don't want that. I don't want something that's actually going to change me. I want to be better. And if it's not Christianity, I'm going to find something else that just makes me feel good. Don't let that happen because of you. I don't need to let that happen because of me. I need to be better. We need to be better. So when what's said in the last part of this chapter is said, it's not held out as witness against us. And we'll go there by entering verses 19 through 25. And the people said to Samuel, pray for your servants to the Lord your God, that we may not die, for we have added to all our sins this evil to ask for ourselves a king. And Samuel said to the people, do not be afraid. You have done all this evil. Yet do not turn aside from following the Lord, but serve the Lord with all your heart. And do not turn aside after empty things that cannot profit or deliver, for they are empty. For the Lord will not forsake his people for his great name's sake, because it has pleased the Lord to make you a people for himself. Moreover, as for me, far be it from me that I should sin against the Lord by ceasing to pray for you. And I will instruct you in the good and the right way. Only fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart. For consider what great things he has done for you. But if you still do wickedly, you shall be swept away, both you and your king. So amazingly, for once in their lives, Israel gets the subtext. They understand, oh, he's calling us out. And they don't grumble and complain. They admit fault. Isn't that such a beautiful thing you wish you could see in your church? People admitting blame, people admitting they hurt you, hurt someone else that you love, and acting like in fear, knowing what's going on, not in like a terrible way of using fear to like control people, like, oh no, I've done wrong, I need to do something about it. Like, that blow anyone else's mind that Israel actually said this, actually meant it? I wish people were more like that. I wish I was more like that. And I need to work on that. But what does Samuel do here? Does he point fingers at him and laugh at him? No. He points a finger at them and says, yes, you're right. You have done evil, but you're not going to die. Don't be afraid of retaliation. Don't be afraid of what could happen. Fear God well. Love him well. Because you have done the things you said. I'm not going to say, no, it's not that bad, guys. No, it is that bad. You shouldn't have done that. But God knew that, and he loves you anyways. So serve him alone, because he's not going to forsake you. For your sake? No, for his great name's sake. It pleased God to make you a people fit for himself. And even better, Samuel doesn't make it all about himself and leave it there. No, he puts personal responsibility on himself. Far be it for me that I should sin against the Lord by seeking to pray for you, and I will instruct you in the good and the right way. Like, look, I'm calling you out, but if I didn't do these things, you would have the right to call me out. But I'm not going to give you that opportunity because I love you and I love God. So even though you have wrongfully put someone else in my place as God's authority on earth, I still love you. I'm still going to pray for you. And if that's not turning the other cheek and loving your enemies well, I don't know what else is. Because he's going to continue loving him and instructing him on what's good and what's evil and what to avoid, how to love and serve God well, how to fear the Lord and serve him faithfully. But also because he loves them, he leaves them with a warning. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. So I expect you to do what you're supposed to do. But if you don't, all of you are going to be swept away. You and your king. Those are ending here today. I'd like to ask you, like, who is your king? What is your king that can easily be swept away by the things of this world when tragedy happens, when you're not prepared for what just happened in front of you, when you're wanting to engage in that one sin and it backfires in your face? Is your king God? Is he the one you follow ultimately with your whole heart? Or is it this thing or this person? Don't follow them. They can't save you. No pleasure we can get on this earth can keep us content forever. So get rid of that sin. Get rid of following that person as if they're God. Don't completely abandon them just yet. They may come for a time for that, but love them well by reminding them they're not God and they don't need to be worshipped as God. And instead, point them towards the God worthy of worship. Ask yourselves what that is for you, what you need to do. Ask God for help, and then do the better part and follow through with it. Because this isn't some idle warning that Samuel gives to the people of Israel. No, for those of us who studied our history, this is exactly what's going to happen multiple times over. Because they were apostate. It may never be said of those of us in the church that we were ever apostate from his will, that we ever told ourselves as God or someone else as God or something else as God. Thank you all for everything. Just give you a chance to leave a 5-star review in your podcasting platform of choice. It helps us the ratings there, helps us find more people. If you're interested in my own fiction writing, you can find my work at sovereignwritersguild.com or on Amazon by searching for the name MC Ashley. If you're all interested in some further solid studies into the Bible and its teachings, then check out the other members of the Anazal Ministries podcasting network. You can find me specifically on Systematic Ecology, Why I Don't Like, Friday Night Frights, Spidey Swing Bys, and some joyful noises. Contact me at letnothingmoveyoupodcast@gmail.com. I'd like to extend a special thank you to Joshua Knoll for the editing that he does and for the music he has to the podcast. With all that in mind, God bless you all in accordance to his will and not mine. Allow me one more time to remind you, let nothing move you.